Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of In the Chute. I'm Brandon Carpenter, and my son Calen Carpenter is the techno wizard here that makes all of this magic happen. So, another episode of Stump the Chump. What do you got for me today?
I really wish you'd quit making it sound like I know all this technology. It's literally Zoom. Record, don't record.
That's more than I can do. I'm just lucky to be able to get this thing turned on my end.
That is true. We were having problems
We've
before
had
these
struggles.
recordings today. All right. So we had six in the queue today. In the crowd tub for in the chute is how you
There
like
you
to
go.
say it. Um, and we've done five so far. This will be the sixth one. We talked about this recently at the time of this filming about impact of predators on the agriculture and whatnot. On one of our, I think it was the last episode of Hashknife Hangouts last year. Um, so kind of focusing mostly on, I guess, coyotes was really our discussion, but we've also had wolves, and then there have been times where mountain lions have shown up. So with that, I'll hand it to you for the impact of predators or predatory animals on livestock, specifically cattle and horses.
Well, it's anytime you have predation, I mean, that's a loss. You might as well uh, write that animal off. It's just no different than if all of a sudden they were walking around, grabbed their heart with their little hooves, and fell over.
Yeah.
It's loss. And the thing of it is, sometimes it's preventable loss, or oftentimes it's preventable loss. It's really depends on where you're living too. If we're on the fringe edge of mountain lion country. Not a lot of lions. So they're usually, when they're coming through, they're just coming through and opportunistic on things. And so it's seldom that we have a lion. Uh, Coyotes, we live with them. I mean, that's just a fact of life. They're all over the place. Wolves are getting more and more, and we've had some impact with wolves ourselves. A couple of horses lost to them. We haven't had any cattle lost, but we didn't have quite as many cattle, and we had more horses at the time too. So there is that. But more and more wolf sightings all the time, right around there. Not just us, but neighbors. So if you were living, oh, say, that Livingston area up the Paradise Valley or the Shields Valley area, either going south or north of Livingston. Those are some significant, especially south towards the park in the Paradise Valley, significant losses on not just wolf loss, but bear loss as well, grizzly bear. So guys that have leases in the mountains in the summertime for sheep allotments, that's a huge deal. Sometimes they have to hire people, not just as sheep herders, to kind of keep these animals or sheep moving or keep them together, flocked up, or moving them from one meadow to another, but they're for the protection against wolves and bears. So um, I really feel for those guys. That's a huge impact, and it seems like a bear has been known to come into a sheep herd, and not just grizzlies, but black bears can do this too, and boar bear, and walk in, and they just start hitting these sheep and throwing them around like puffballs, and it kills them. So wolves kill for fun, not just for food. That thing that they only kill for thin out the diseased and the and the ones that got it coming is wrong. They kill for opportunity. Um, so when you consider that say in those parts of the country, a mountain lion is predating on things, an average lion will kill 2 to 3 deer a week. So I mean, that's a lot of loss out there. And I mean, they're a natural, necessary animal to keep populations in check themselves. But when you're trying to make a living on some of these animals that haven't historically been there or been there as much, then it's a huge impact. And there's millions of dollars a year lost from predation.
Yeah.
So that's just animal predation.
Well, and I think we're talking a lot of like loss of life, and then obviously loss of I guess monetary items because we do sell those, either your sheep herder or cattle or horses. You sell those animals typically, and then you'll get a return on them. But then there's also And I don't remember how she got injured, but to take a step back, it is also heavy on resources and time as well, because if a horse or a cow or something is wounded or injured and you can nurse it back, it's going to take time and it's going to take medical supplies to help it. And I'm thinking specifically of that one mare we had a long time ago, Doe. She was ran into a fence from what we kind of figured out. Was that from a wolf or a mountain lion? Where I thought you
We
guys
don't
had kind of figured it out.
most likely a wolf, but we don't,
Uh-huh.
just because the opportunity was more available
Yeah.
for a wolf to do it, because we'd had some wolf sightings in the area, um, and some wolf kills in the area. Of course, the Fish and Game would, they were denying that there was anything there that, we didn't know what we were looking at. And
Well,
I'm
that
like,
was that was deep. That was deep when they had just introduced wolves only a few years before, and
yeah,
they were
about
still on an
10
endangered
years or so
list.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were moving out and people were seeing it, but they were denying it because basically they didn't want to have to manage it. And
Right.
that's what they do. So but they are all over. We're seeing them. Hell, you're seeing grizzly bears down as far as Fort Benton and, close to Great Falls. I mean,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of them. Uh, they've been able to replenish their population because of the Endangered Species Act, but there comes a time when you got too many of them, and they're going to make a bigger impact not only on their own population because of the food sources, but then they start moving outside and in populated areas, and arguably, if you're a purist, they were here long before we were. I mean, Lewis and Clark, Lewis Daimler got ate by one there at
Yeah.
right at the Great Falls.
Yeah.
So they're historically a plains animal, but most animals were a plains animal before we pushed them into the mountains, or they adapted to that because of just we were the predators towards them. So um, it's I don't know, probably the last 10 years where we've really been talking about delisting the grizzly bear. And we got a friend of ours, well, Suzanne Miller from the Dunroven Ranch. Her husband, Sterling, is a bear biologist. That's what he's done his entire life, and a very good one. And he was, wrote a paper and discussed the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and how bears needed to be managed because there were too many of them, and he's not shy about it. I mean, we have some great debates, he and I, because he's on one side of it, I'm on the ag side, and we'll have great debates. Love the guy; he's a lot of fun. Um, we don't agree most of the time, and that's okay. But he's passionate about what he does, and he's not afraid to go against what is the conventional thought processes. And I know he presented that paper, and many of his peers did not like it
Yeah.
because they want to they are not about biology anymore. They're more about sociology and a agenda of saving all wildlife, which it's got a good purpose to that, but you got to be able to be realistic about how you can manage it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I
and he's
think
very pragmatic about those things.
that's something where kind of tying it all together is in a perfect world we would say, you know, um, if the predators didn't exist at all, then it would be an unhealthy ecosystem and whatnot. But if they could just stay in their fenced areas, they would be really nice because then they could stay away from us and in the livestock industry. But that's just not how it works. So
Right.
ideally, or what I should say is realistically, it goes back to we hunt and fish. We're conservationists and whatnot. Like it goes back to manage elk herds, manage deer herds, manage all of your ungulates, manage the predators as well. It doesn't just apply to the prey animals that most people eat. It also applies to the predators, and we should apply all of those principles to all the species that are available in our ecosystem, specifically Montana, not just pick and choose because we want a nostalgia that's been created by some people who may or may not completely understand the situation both economically and regionally.
Right. Well, and there's a part of that too, that is, if as much as it pains me to admit it, and I don't like coyotes, but if you don't have coyotes, your rabbit population and small rodent population
Right.
will eat all your grass.
Yeah.
So, and if you've got antelope, like, as a guy that wants to save every spear of grass you can for your cattle or horses, you have to have some tolerance for some of those too, because they do serve a purpose. They're browsers in the wintertime, and so they do fill a niche that is sometimes blown out of proportion about what kind of damage they do to the industry or ag industry, in particular, like grasses. They don't eat as much as one would think. Like, you'll never see an antelope eating on a haystack. I've never seen that yet.
Yeah.
Deer and elk will eat the hell out of it. I
Oh,
mean, yeah, it'll
absolutely.
make an impact, but so there is some tolerance, but you can't afford to let them run amok and completely wipe you out either. So there's some balance there.
Well, with that, I think we will put out the topic for discussion for pasture.
Where to? Out to pasture. All right.
Yep. Messed it up, but all right.
All right.